So about a week ago, I reviewed the ThinkPad Z13, but today I want to talk about the Z16 because it's a bigger, better version of its smaller little sibling. The big difference though is that the model I have here is using a full aluminum chassis. It does not have the vegan leather that was made from real vegan people. That just didn't come with this version. Now, I don't know if there is a model with vegan leather. I hope there is, because I do think this texture and the way it feels, not only does it show less fingerprints, it just gives it a classier look. This looks a bit more traditional. And don't get me wrong, it feels very solid. You know, like the lid flex is superb. It has that reverse webcam notch. So when you put your finger here, it makes it very easy to open up. ThinkPad light does go on when the laptop goes on, but this is a bigger laptop, so it's obviously going to be heavier. We're talking a bit over 4 pounds, but you do get a couple of other benefits. The first one being is you do get more ports. Instead of just having 2 Type-C ports on the Z13, this one comes with 3. So you have 2 on the left, plus your SD card slot. Also, the power connector is 135 watts, so it is a bigger power brick. And then on the right-hand side, you have another Type-C port, audio jack, and your power button. This also acts as a fingerprint scanner. Now, opening it up, you get the exact same sort of deck you got on the Z13. As you can see here, I did not clean it on purpose. It is starting to pick up a lot of fingerprints. That's what you can expect when you use a black deck. It just shows fingerprints a lot more. I'm getting a couple MacBook vibes here because of the speaker placement. With the Z13, the speakers were on the bottom. With the Z16, they're on the top. So even though they're still 2 2-watt speakers, because they're forward facing, you technically get better sound. This keyboard is amazing. I love this keyboard. This is hands down one of my favorite keyboards on a Windows laptop. It has very good travel distance. It's very clicky. The actuation is good. And it has the U-shaped keys. That's a signature trait with Lenovo, but it's the touchpad. The touchpad, being a haptic touchpad, which is exactly what the MacBook Pro uses, makes the biggest difference ever. I want all Lenovo products. In fact, I want all Windows laptops to have haptic touchpads this good, because it literally feels like I'm using a touchpad from the MacBook Pro. And the way you know that it's haptic is when your computer's off, you can't click on it, like nothing happens. You don't get that vibration effect when you touch it. But as soon as it's on, it's enabled and it feels so good. Now, I did have to tweak the settings under the touchpad settings in the control panel to get it to be very specific to a MacBook. But because this is the Z16, you get a lot more touchpad space. Like, it's just a lot bigger. And this is really important because they're including a track point on their laptop. And I found with the Z13, I'm going back and forth between Z and Z. I don't know what's happening to me today. With the Z13, the trackpad was smaller, and that made a big difference when you're using the track point, because part of that touchpad got removed since the top portion acts as buttons that you can press on. Now, sticker placement is weird because AMD came in, put on a perfect sticker, but because this is the iSafe certified guy, like, he doesn't have any presence in the sticker industry, AMD's like, you cannot be beside me. So you know when you have that little brother and sister that comes up to you and puts their finger right by your eye, but doesn't touch it and is like, I'm not touching you? That's exactly what happened here with iSafe certified. Now, the display is obviously bigger. It's 16 inches, 16 by 10, it's 60 hertz, it's IPS. This is the 1920 by 1200 model. There's 2 1920 models you can choose from. This one doesn't have touch, but the slightly more expensive one does. And there's also an OLED version of this. Color accuracy and color gamut is fantastic on this thing, so no worries if you're a creator. Webcam is identical to the Z13, so you are getting a 1080p experience, and there's a bunch of different settings you can change in the Lenovo software to change the exposure and a few other things. Now, the CPU is a bit different in this guy. This is the R7-6850H Pro CPU from AMD, whereas the Z13 is using the U series. So expect about 25% better CPU performance. You just have a bigger chassis, there's more room to cool it, so they can put a more powerful processor inside of here. Plus, there is a version of this laptop that comes with a RX 6500M in case you need a dedicated GPU. So 25% more CPU performance across the board. Doesn't matter what you're doing, regardless of whether you are a creator or a developer, you're just gonna get 25% better performance. The integrated GPU is identical to the Z13, so it's the 600M series, the 680M, I think, to be specific. And it's a good integrated GPU. Like, you're not going to be gaming on this thing, but if you want to play an older title, drop down the settings a bit, you'll have a good experience. Now, instead of using software to control the thermal profiles, you're actually just using Windows power options. So if you have it on better performance, intelligent cooling will kick on and give you the best performance possible, but fan noise will go up to 52 decibels if you're really pushing this thing. If you leave it on balance mode, fan noise drops down to 42, and you lose about like 15 to 20% performance, but you get a much quieter experience. If you want this thing to be absolutely quiet in class and offer decent performance, then put it on better power efficiency. Fan noise will drop below 40. Heat management does ramp up when you have it on performance mode. The CPU did tend to hit 100 degrees Celsius. Now, internally, not a lot is upgradable. RAM is soldered onto the motherboard, and the most you can have or buy is 32 gigabytes. You have an empty drive slot to the left if you want to add a second one in the future, but the main one here gets really good read and write speeds. Wi-Fi card is soldered onto the motherboard, and you do have a 72 watt-hour battery. And this is hands down the battery champion of 2022. On power efficiency mode, I got 29 hours and 11 minutes. That's unheard of. And the test that I did was by PCMark. It's their modern office test, which does a combination of idle time, office work like typing documents, and conference call. Now, just like the Z13, it's going to be out of the price for a lot of people. But again, I feel like this is a great laptop for companies to push towards their employees who need great battery life, good build quality, easy access to the internals, and a very good experience. Like, this haptic touchpad is too good. Like, it's giving me MacBook Pro vibes. It's on that level. But the star of the show is obviously the battery life. If you're someone who needs a bigger screen but wants the best battery life possible, take a look at this guy because it's too good. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.